Very good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
First of all, I must admit that I have two clear disadvantages. One, that I am the last speaker after such eminent speakers, my seniors. So I'll have to be very careful what I talk. Second, unfortunately, I'm a serving police officer. And when a serving police officer...
Unfortunately? Why unfortunately?
Yes, I'll tell you.
For us, it is fortunate.
Yes,
I'll tell you, because being serving police officer, I have to be very, very careful what I talk.
That's fine.
Because, and I request all of you, if I say something which is not palatable, please don't hold it against me, because I am not here in the capacity as DG and IGP. I am wearing two hats today, as I think. I'm speaking today as a simple policeman standing on the road. And sometimes I'm speaking here today like an ordinary citizen. So these are the two hats I'm wearing today. So I would like to speak my mind, what I think about police reforms. Tragedy. Police reforms were given in 1979, much before I joined the service. And now I am going to retire from the service in a couple of years, and we are still talking about police reforms. Are police reforms relevant today? What we talked in 1979, is it relevant today? I would say yes, but very theoretically. Sorry, I am saying very theoretically, because the goalpost has changed in these 40 years. And we are still running after those things which were said about in 1979. Now you may say, so don't we want all those things? We do want all those things. We wanted PEB, we got PEB. We wanted the Police Complaints Authority, we got Police Complaint Authority. We wanted some tenure for DG, the method of selection for DG, we got it. We wanted some tenure for police inspectors, we got it, and then got truncated. And we wanted certain things which did not happen. But the point is, if some things have not happened in last 40 years, maybe they are not going to happen in next 40 years also. Let us move on. Let us rethink. And that's why today the topic is, let's rethink. What is required as police reforms today? I am not bothered about some things which have not happened, because I know for sure that certain things which have happened, those who are in power have devised method to circumvent those also. So a lot of things which we claim have happened and file affidavits that they have happened on paper. I don't want to go into details. All of us know about that. So I'm not too much worried about what has not happened. I am talking about the things which we should be talking today, which were not talked about in 1979, and therefore there is a need to rethink about police reforms in a different way. Why you may say that why I am cynical, some things are not going to happen, because I read that if reforms have to be done in any field in the life, if reforms have to be done, somebody who holds power should be willing to let go that power. Somebody should be willing to let go that power. Now we know from 79 to 2021, are the people in power more willing to let go their power? No. So that's why I am saying, let's move on and let's think of the reforms in a different paradigm altogether. What has happened has happened. We may take achievements in establishing police complaint authorities. Mr. Gopal Gowda, please don't hold it against me, but I am saying, why police complaint authority? There are plenty of commissions, SC/ST commission, women commission, legislative committees, courts, which are watching the actions of police at every step. Today, whatever police does or does not do is being challenged by half a dozen agencies. Has that improved the policing? Certainly not. In fact, anything in the reforms which was an attempt to tie the hands and legs of the police has been done very easily. Other things which were supposed to empower the police as a department have not happened. And therefore, we should talk about those empowerments of police. Few things were mentioned even during this discussion. Today, if I, for example, registration of crime. Now, Dr. Ravindra also, when he introduced, he mentioned 63% cognizable cases have increased, 73% special laws have increased. So what? I would not be surprised. I would have been happier if they had increased by 1000%, because increasing the crime is not in the hand, or decreasing the crime or increasing the crime is not because of reflection of police in the society. It is because of thousands of factors. Maybe every organ of the society is not doing their duty, and that's why the crimes are increasing. In fact, police can easily decrease the crime. If as an officer, as in charge of the police force, if I were to say to my police force, I want crime to come down by 50%, they will easily bring it down by 50%. My challenge is that if I ask them to increase by 1000%, they will not do it. Why? Because as a policeman, I will ask, sir, you are asking me to do free registration. I will do free registration. Crime will increase from 200 to 2000. Now, to investigate that 2000 cases instead of 200 cases, have you provided me resources? Number one, you have not provided me resources, and you are not going to provide me resources. You are going to say, oh, run as you were running till yesterday on local resources. Number two, do you assure me that you are not going to judge me on those numbers? Unfortunately, the policing is judged by the crime statistics. Even today, by media, by political parties, by governments, even by people. No, I don't think people judge police by the crime statistics. In fact, something called crime statistics is overemphasized in our whole system. Two things I want to talk about crime statistics. We all talked about it, non-registration of FIR, etc., etc. Number one, do crime statistics reflect the actual ground reality on the ground? You will all agree, certainly not. We all know not even 25 or 30% of the crimes that should have been registered go into the system because of variety of reasons. Number two, do people as a citizen, I care whether your crime rate is 1000 or 2000 or 10,000. I don't. So as a citizen, what I'm concerned about? As a citizen, I'm concerned about that when I was in distress, when somebody was molesting me, and I rang up 100 or I rang up 112, how fast the call was picked up by the control room. After picking up the call, how well the person at the other end spoke to me. After speaking to me, how fast the police assistance or the police vehicle reached where I needed help, where I was in distress. After reaching there, what did they do? These are the things which a common man is concerned with, not about the statistics. That is one thing. I'll give you another example. When I apply for a police verification, how many times I have to go to the police stations? How much footfall? How many footfalls to ask? One day I go, some officer is not there. Next day they say, come next day. So how many times I had to visit the police station before I got my police verification or passport verification? Number three, when I'm walking on the road and somebody flags my vehicle, when I'm driving on the road and somebody flags my vehicle, and I say, what happened? And he says, you have jumped the light, signal light. I say, no, I didn't. But the policeman says, you did. I must agree because he says you did. I ask him for evidence. Is he able to produce the evidence? I ask him for transparency, or I receive a challan at home that you have jumped signal or you went against one way. When I ask policemen, show me the evidence, are they able to show the evidence? So what as a citizen I need is an evidence-based policing. What as citizen I need is transparency in how police run the show. So these are the things which matter to police. But are we even measuring police performance as per these statistics? Now there is an organization called NCRB. Every year, the moment NCRB publishes its data, the journalists are the happiest people. Why they are happiest people? because they can make 20 story out of each page, even without understanding the crime data, what it means and how it is needs to be interpreted. But we talk about crime statistics, crime rate, etc., knowing pretty well that it is not the reflection of ground reality. Do we ever talk about response statistics? Is there any mechanism in our police, all those people who supervise police or who assess police, is anyone doing anything to say, let us measure the response statistics of the police? How many times somebody had to visit the police station to get his work done or get a FIR registered? How many how long somebody had to wait before he got police help when he was in distress? So unfortunately, the police reforms, when we talk about, now I'm coming to the point which Mr. Shri Kumar said, that I'm not saying let's forget about what has not happened in the police reforms of 1979. I am saying let us do a paradigm shift. Let us talk about the internal reforms which are totally in our hand. No one is stopping, no politician is stopping the police leadership from doing thousands of things which can easily be done, which we are not doing. I mean, and there the role of other departments, our brother department, is also important. You want policing to improve, but you want constable to be very nice, sophisticated, but you still treat, when I'm saying you, I mean the other parts of the government or the leadership. You want constable to talk very nicely to people on the road, but you still treat him as group D employee equal to a PN. You want a sub-inspector to be so sophisticated, he should be able to investigate terrorism, from pickpocket to terrorism to corporate conflicts, but still you give him a status of group C employee in the whole hierarchy of government department. So we get what we give to them. So therefore, there is a need to look at all these reforms in total differently, give them, what does a policeman want to improve policing? From, if you ask a policeman, if I am a constable, I will say, I need 3 things in life as a policeman. I need a good place to stay. I need a good place to work. The condition of police stations sometimes is so pathetic. And I need a good place to get trained. And I want good training. And no one is, no politician, no government is stopping, and no commissions are required to tell us that these reforms need to be done. What I want to say today is that there are a whole lot of reforms which can be done internally, in which no politician is interested. And those are only possible when you keep the citizen in the center of your whole policy making. I went to government and I said, who is anyone else to tell the police station how much he should be spending on stationery? Remove that barrier, remove that limit. How can you say only 2,000 or 3,000 on stationery? It became unlimited. Now it is unlimited. The money which is given to them is only limited to that extent that they can spend that money for keeping the police station clean. Fine. There are so many other things, housing, which needs to be done, which is being done. Technology, Mr. Shri Kumar went in great detail talking about technology. Technology is a great game changer. Technology can bring transparency. When we are talking of evidence-based policing, it can only be done by technology. It cannot be done by adding thousands of policemen on the roads. You take them 5 times. If you don't bring technology, it will be citizens' word against policemen' word, and policemen will always win in that war against the citizen unfairly, because sometimes policemen work on the roads like a street bureaucrats with huge amount of discretion. So that discretion can only go when we bring objectivity and transparency.
Another 2 minutes.
System. Yes, sir. We bring transparency and objectivity into the functioning of police. And my feeling is, before I close, what reforms have happened, maybe good or bad, have happened. I am talking of 79 reforms. What have not happened, let us stop. I'm not saying stop, but let's not only keep beating our chest about those. There are so many things which were not envisaged in 1979 reforms, which should be the core of our the police reforms for times to come. And I would say many things are in our hands, in the hands of leadership. There are so many subjects about free registration of crime. I can dwell for hours why it should not be done free registration of crime. I will tell you, because unless the conditions A, B, C are met, the free registration sometime can be counterproductive. And I don't want to talk here, but I can talk about that convincingly. I will give one example before I close, because something which looks panacea for all the problems, it may not be actually panacea for all the problems. Before I close, I'll give one example. When last year the traffic fines improved by 5 times and 10 times, there were celebrations in the entire country, and everyone thought that from tomorrow accidents will reduce, traffic will improve. No, because increasing traffic fine is a good thing. You make them 5 times, 10 times, but before that some condition A, B and C have to be met. Without meeting condition A, B and C, if you multiply traffic fines, it will only raise the level of corruption and bribery. And as you see, traffic hasn't, if it has improved, it has not improved because of the traffic fines going up. And then you may ask, what is that A, B, C? In short, I will say A is that if you want the fines to be 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, make every fine supported with evidence. Number 2, B, if you want fines to be 10,000 and 5,000, then make it a zero tolerance. It's not that the 20 people jump the signal, 5 are caught and 15 left behind. Then each one of them 20 have to be caught because they have done something wrong. And if you want these traffic fines to impact on our traffic conditions, leverage technology, because you can't do A and B unless you leverage technology. So there are prerequisites, just like there are prerequisites for getting benefit of increased traffic fines, there are prerequisites before you get benefit of doing free registration. And unless we do that prerequisite, these are going to be counterproductive. Thank you. Can I answer that?
Yes.
Yeah.
In fact, that's what I raised. For example, let's talk about the Lal Killa incident. One farmer dying is a big news. 300 policemen getting admitted in the hospital is not a news. There is so much of condemnation about everything, but I haven't heard anyone talking about those 300 policemen. Even people have praised policemen for utmost restraint. But the point is, you have commission to look into interest of everyone. There is SC/ST commission, child commission, women commission, legislative, this thing. There are so many measures. Where is that badly required commission for policemen to look after their grievances?
Come and I'll take permission with you and I'll do my research for non-doctoral purpose. And this study only for the academic point of view. Please, sir.
You have converted this to a police complaints authority. Yes, Praveen, please.
Well, Mr. Ashok,
Yes, sir.
go to the field and talk to policemen. That
Yes,
is
sir.
the problem. Don't start from top. First, go to the field. You don't require any permission from DGP to talk to policemen. Policemen will speak their heart out. In fact, they keep waiting to somebody to approach them to ask, what is your problem? And that is where you start from the bottom cutting edge level, and you will get 90% of your content, and then you can always interact with the senior officers. But Dr. Ravindra, sir, can I add something, slightly different, if you permit me?
Tell me, please. Go ahead.
So one issue which you raised was about recruitment. As Dr. Ajay Kumar Singh said, there is absolutely no logic in separating the recruitment, because police does not work in isolation. In fact, I will give you, we should become more closure. There should not be IAS, IPS, forest and all those things. And in fact, 90% of the problems which police is handling in the field, whether in law and order or crime way, are actually not police problems. Every time we order a lathi charge, or a firing is because somebody else other than police did not do what they were expected to do. People are allowed to agitate, people are allowed to sit for months and problem is not found. So how does every problem get solved in India? Convert every department's problem, allow it to become a police problem, bring it to the stage where police have to use fire or force, and then the whatever is the original demand of the agitators is forgotten, and the easier demand is suspension of police and action on police, and that is the easiest demand to fulfill in this country, and the problem gets solved. So we have to work together. So separate solution does not augur well. In fact, I will give you an example. I'll give you a very practical example. On 1st January, we went to call on, it's customary to call on honorable ministers and chief ministers. So when I went with my officer, somebody said, first, so-and-so service will meet, then this service will meet, from this to this time, this service will meet. I said, no, we will all go together. Why IAS meeting separate, IPS meeting separate, forest service meeting separate? So the need of the hour is to bring these services together, to make them understand each other. And therefore recruitment is only one thing. It's a method of recruitment. It doesn't make a difference. The training is anyway separate. We have to come closer because all our problems are getting intermingled. My problems can only be solved by IAS people. I need more budget. They can provide it. They need to be more empathetic. They need to be more sympathetic towards my problems. And their problems, anyway, we are removing, and we will continue to remove in the fields by wielding a lathi or using force.
First of all, first and foremost, I must thank the IIPA and for organizing this program and extremely illuminating talk by all the speakers today. My question is to Mr. Praveen Sood, who is the presiding deity of the police today. I must also say to this August gathering that the way in which Mr. Praveen Sood is going about the job, and he has a dream team with him, he has been able to accomplish a lot of things in this short span, and fortunately he has also a very long span ahead. Sir, my question to you is, one of the important problems that the police face is through the media. Do you at any point of time have thought of bringing out a media doctrine for the police? If I remember it right, when in intelligence, I had drafted a media doctrine as to how much police need to communicate, what they need not communicate, and how the news agencies have to comply with whatever is our doctrine. Have you tried to make this effort?
Thank you, Mr. Hosur, for kind words. Yes, handling media is a very, very difficult. In fact, one of the biggest challenge, which not only police, every institution of society is facing. Even politicians find it very, very difficult. Who are otherwise very skilled in handling other things, they find it difficult. Yes, we have a policy, and I will tell you what my thinking in this regard is. I feel we need to keep talking. We need to connect with if we have to connect with people, we have to connect through media. So you would have seen me when I was SP or DCP and additional CP and even CP. I used to talk to media a lot. I have become DG and IGP, and I haven't opened my mouth in last 365 days. So
my question is slightly different. Officers under you are directly going to the media and exchanging their views on various things which need not have been done.
Yes. So there are two parts. One is the professional work. The unit officers should speak, and I encourage them to speak. For example, SPs, commissioners, etc. And what, as head of the DG, as head of the DG and IGP, I should be speaking only on the policy matters. But there are some non-professional or unprofessional things which are discussed with media openly. I would say media is used to settle personal scores. Now that is a horrible thing which is happening. And Dr. Ravindra also mentioned about certain instances. Dr. Ravindra, I would say these are more of individual cases than service cases. Certain individuals continuously, repeatedly keep using media and social media to their personal advantage at times. But the policy is that it should not happen. And if it happens, the disciplinary action should be taken, because the media cannot be used, because media is listening to us because of our position. If I speak today, they listen to me because I am occupying this position. If I speak as an ordinary person, probably no one would even, howsoever esoteric talk I may give, they may not even listen to me or write to me. So when we are misusing the media to our personal advantage, or giving our personal views, then it is wrong. And as a policy, we want to enforce discipline, strict discipline when it comes to that count. But in the professional work, police should talk to media, because the only way of connecting with, for example, if commissioner doesn't talk to media, there is no way he can connect with 10 million people of Bangalore city. So that is a must.
Karnataka State Police emblem. Nondavarige Nerevu.
Yes.
Words cannot change, but words can influence, can inspire also. Maybe you can consider that our motto of Karnataka Police should be Nondavarige Nerevu. Thank you.
I promise you, sir.
Yeah, very good.
And sir,
very good.
can I say one more thing if I am given 2 minutes? Because one thing which I forgot, again going back slightly, but since there is August company, I am taking this liberty. The National Police Commission mentioned about segregating law and order with investigation and all. And I have tried to understand what they meant.
What it means, yeah.
I have never been able to find answer, but I will give you one answer today. Please think before we stop. And before we stop this session. To me, I have done a lot of introspection on what does it mean and because in the police station, they say murder case is law and order, theft case is crime or investigation, which is all rubbish, I would say. It is not correct. So whatever goes in records is crime records in the form of non-cognizable offense or cognizable offense or FIR, whatever may be the section, whatever needs to be investigated, that is investigating, that there is no doubt about it. Then what is law and order? I will give you one example. We have now 112 in the state. We get thousands of calls in a day. We are attending, our motto is 15 by 15. That means every call will be picked up in 15 seconds. And please test us. And every vehicle will reach the place of distress on an average in 15 minutes. I emphasize on an average in 15 minutes. Now, after I did that, this started in 2017 in Bangalore city, and I did survey of 20,000 cases. What I found is that in 85% of the cases, mere police vehicle reaching the spot of distress solves the problem. Only in 5%, the Hoysala would say, oh, this requires inspector's presence or DSP's presence. And remaining 10% are the cases where there is a requirement of registration of a FIR or a complaint. Now the tragedy is, of 100% work which police does, only 10% goes into the system in written form. Now this 90, but this is the remaining 90, and we all talk about that 10%. NCRB talks about 10%. NCRB judges on that 10%. The 90% of the work, which is more important to an average citizen, which gets relief once the police vehicle reaches there. Because we all know, police reaches their problem gets solved. They don't want anything in writing. Some woman is being chased, being teased. The problem ends. Some drunk fellow is fallen, the problem gets solved. This 85% or 90% is what constitutes the law and order. And when we talk of segregation of police work of crime and law and order, segregate, create a system of 112. In fact, we should keep strengthening 112 so that our response time improves. And that the day and the police station staffs keep doing the investigation. This is the real segregation of investigation with law and order. I don't know how many people interpret it in this way, but personally, I interpret it in this way. I have done a lot of thinking about it. I would like your views whenever possible on this subject. That is what I think. I have been saying that we need a paradigm shift, not only in talking about police reforms, but also interpreting what 1979 reforms meant. Thank you, sir.